I think it's time. And I say WrestleMania 40 is only a couple months away, and I felt like it would be appropriate for us to just give our own predictions of where we think the card's going to be, and we can compare it when we're actually right across the right well, a couple of days away from it. Once we actually know what we've got ahead of us, we can do a comparison maybe. But let's get into it. And I'll just say right off the bat, I actually found this really hard
Oh, okay.
with the events, recent events. I just felt like things all of a sudden came a lot harder to predict. And to start off with, I'm going to go big. I'm going to say, what do you think is going to happen with the World Heavyweight Championship match? Because Seth Rollins is probably going to defend it. Who do you have as the challengers?
Well, when you say that you found this very hard, I actually the image that I'm getting in my head is the scene from the 1930s Snow White movie, where one of the dwarfs asks Snow White about falling in love, and he says, "Was it hard to do?" And she laughs and says, "No, it was very, very easy." The reason I'm reminded of that is because before Sunday, our time, I would have said putting together this card was super, super easy because I had been doing it just for fun. But now that we've had the injury of CM Punk, as well as the injury of Seth Rollins slightly before them, it made things a lot more complicated. So I'm going to throw out a couple names. One idea is to swap like for like, which is the one that my immediate instinct went to first. And that was, who is an indie star that deserves their main event WrestleMania moment? Sami Zayn. I think you can put in Sami Zayn with a big babyface moment, getting his pop, becoming world champion was one of my predictions for 2024. It would have been really, really cool to see that. So he's the first name that I've got. Do you want to throw out one of your names? I've got four. I've got four potential ones,
I
but
have
Sami
two
Zayn's mine.
names. I have two names, and I've gone all out. I'm predicting a triple threat
Oh, okay. This is for the
and
World Heavyweight
for
Championship.
the World Heavyweight Championship, and I think that it's going to be Sami Zayn, and I think the other name, and I reckon you've got him on your list as well, Drew McIntyre.
Mm,
And my main reason for this, to be honest, is because I felt like these two both deserve a high spot or like a big moment at Mania. And at one point I was dilly-dallying as to whether or not to have them face each other, but they've wrestled on Raw so many times of late that I just felt like having them on their own at Mania just it wouldn't feel right. So I thought, how do you make what they're doing already bigger? Oh, I know. Add Seth Rollins and add the World Heavyweight Championship. So I've thrown them two in, and that's what I'm predicting. But I would like us to have a joint prediction at the end. So we'll
okay.
we'll come to an agreement as to what we're going to predict for the card. Also, because it saves me on the editing, so I can just do the one graphic
That's
instead of having
that's
to
fine.
do it
All
for
right.
each.
Well, the other two names that I've got are one is Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
Right? So that's
Yep.
obviously been teased, and that's purely I would not have put that there if they did not have that segment, right?
Yep.
On Raw. The other one is Gunter. It
Mm.
hasn't happened in over 30 years that the IC champion and the world champion go head to head for a winner takes all, not a unification, a winner takes all. And given the way that Gunter has been going, this would be pretty freaking awesome for him to be anointed as the world champion while also continuing his reign as the IC champion, right? Um, so look, that's my thought on those names. Where do you want to go as far as joint predictions?
Well, it's up to you. Like I want to hear your thought because to be honest, I did think about Gunter versus Rollins to winner takes all because I think that would be massive. The only reason I didn't go for it is I felt like it would mean that you're combining two potentially massive matches into one. And then, to be honest, it just made it harder for me to predict other card matches. So I just decided I'll just keep them separate for now. But I would be open to it in practice as long I'd have to see how everything else comes about. But I felt like for the sake of giving us the Intercontinental Championship match to predict as well, let's maybe come to an agreement on the other three names that you picked.
Can I be honest with you? Because let's be clear for our listeners. we're not predicting who's going to win any of these. We're
No,
just
no,
predicting what the card's going to be.
absolutely.
And because I am anticipating that if we have this prediction, we have a 2 out of 3 possibility that an indie star wins, that I'm actually going to go with your triple threat option
Oh,
and
okay.
say that Drew and Sammy would be a good shout. I actually thought, to be honest, that they would go against each other in a mid-card match.
Right.
But because they wrestled in the main event on Raw just on this past week, might be an indication that guys have this blow off now because at WrestleMania, each of you is going to get something bigger. Kind of like when Kurt Angle and Undertaker wrestled at No Way Out in 2006 when they were slated to be at WrestleMania. It's like, let's get it out now so that we can have the different plan, the backup plan at WrestleMania.
Okay, well, let's then move on to the counterpart to the World Heavyweight Championship, and that's the Women's World Championship. And for this one for me was considerably easier because I do see a linear path for that title, and that is Rhea Ripley defends against Nia Jax at Elimination Chamber in front of the Australian faithful, wins, and then goes up against who I've got as her opponent, and that is the man, Becky Lynch.
I frankly, like, there's nothing more I can add to that because I was tossing up in my head before a couple days ago how it would go down at Elimination Chamber, and thinking about, all right, we've got to have maybe Rhea wants to defend it in the chamber, but then it means she has to win, and it makes it a lot more difficult to figure out who is going to become the number one contender the night after. So I actually agree with you that the best way to do it is have her compete in singles at Elimination Chamber against Nia Jax, defeat Nia Jax, and then crown a number one contender in the chamber match, being the only logical person you can have, and that's Becky Lynch.
All right, well, no need to speculate any further on that one. It seems like we're quite sold on what we want. So the next up, I've got the Intercontinental Championship match, and this one again, I felt like there's a laundry list of names really that could foreseeably be in this, especially if we're going off the prediction of Gunther's not facing Seth Rollins. I actually want to hear your thoughts on this first because I
Well,
was
I,
really struggling.
I had written down 3 names as possibilities. One was Seth Rollins to have the winner takes all match. Another one was also Sami Zayn
I'd
because,
love to see it.
and these latter two that I'm going to put in there, frankly, all 3 of them, but more these latter two, they are necessitated by the fact that Brock Lesnar did not appear at the Royal Rumble as we thought he would. That's because he's been referred to in the lawsuit that Vince McMahon is copying. And if he has, done wrong, committed wrongdoing, then he shouldn't be at WrestleMania, much less in a prominent match like the IC title match. And therefore, having someone like a Sami Zayn in there, even if he loses, he can look great. But he would also be someone that feasibly you could see as defeating Gunther and it being a big deal. The other one that I've got here is a returning Sheamus. That would be symmetry with last year because they had the show-stealing match along with Drew McIntyre in there. And he's another one who he wants to get that IC title to complete his Grand Slam. That's the only one that's left. He's done everything. He's been King of the Ring. He's been Money in the Bank Royal Rumble winner, world title, US title, tag straps. The IC title's the last one, so there's a real big story there.
Yeah, and look, to be honest, I had Sheamus as well. And
Okay.
for the simple fact Seth and Sammy are already taken up, I feel like it's an
It's a
easy.
neat fit.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I would love to see it. And actually, if that does happen, I'd want to see Sheamus finally get that win. I just feel like the man deserves it, man. He's put up with a lot. He's gone through a lot. He's been around for a long time. Give him that IC championship.
And it'd be a good stage to see it as well.
Yeah. And I want to give him a quick shout out because his pursuit for it, along with Gunther's amazing reign, has really elevated the status of the IC Championship again. For the first time since probably The Miz cut that promo on Talking Smack,
In
that
2016.
that really made it feel like it was a big deal. Yeah. All right. Well, the next match I've got is the Women's WWE Tag Team Championship match. And what do you think for this?
A little while ago, I've only got one prediction here. I think it's going to be against the Unholy Union. The
Okay.
Kabuki Warriors versus Unholy Union, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Because even though they have already wrestled I wouldn't put it past WWE to do a repeat match because they do it very frequently. But I just thought that this made sense because the Unholy Union have been talking about the curse on the women's tag straps. And it just felt like it made sense for them to win the titles at some point. And WrestleMania is the biggest stage to do that. So it could also represent, like the downfall of Damage Control, because that's going to tie into the women's prediction that I'm going to have a little bit later. But yeah, so I think Kabuki Warriors versus Unholy Union, to be honest.
Look, I agree, and actually, just for the sheer fact of symmetry from last year, I put four women's teams along with the champions, including the champions,
Hmm.
and I had only Unholy Union in it, and you know what? I can see that happening. The other names I had was like Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler, and I even had like just as like a rogue shout Maxine Dupree and Ivy Nile.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I
Like
can see that happening.
I could totally say that. But you know, I'm going to go with your prediction and say the Unholy Union. And if it happens to be a multi-team match and they're involved, we'll count that as a win.
Count it as a win. I like it.
All right. Well, similarly, let's go into the men's tag team championship match. And I've got the Judgment Day versus DIY. And I know we just had this on Raw, but I just think give them a couple months to really build up their composure, go for it again. That's my thought.
That's one that I've seen around the internet. The one that I was thinking, frankly, that I think they might be building up to as far as a storyline perspective is Awesome Truth.
Yeah.
I think that with R-Truth being, trying to put himself in the Judgment Day, that him teaming up with his old partner and doing something they couldn't do back then, more than 10 years ago, is to actually get the straps off and be like, like a nice little baby face moment. So that's my prediction, frankly. But I would love to see DIY win. I would love to see them be champions.
I'll tell you what, I'll put them both in the graphic, and whichever one works out, we'll count that as a win.
Let us know in the comments which one of those you'd rather see.
Absolutely. Okay, after that, I've got listed here the US Championship match. And this one, again, a bit harder to predict now after this person's been a legitimate world title contender. But I think it's going to be Logan Paul versus LA Knight.
I think so as well. I want that to happen. I'm so keen for that to happen, to be honest. It's just going to be awesome for the guy to finally get his anointment after like a year and a half, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully.
Hopefully,
Let,
hopefully.
maybe Logan Paul has some good power to behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You never
I
know.
think I remember on our it was last year, I think, in our unaired pilot of the Audible finish, that we had predicted that LA Knight would not win the SummerSlam Battle Royal because he would get his big moment later on. And I think this is that later on moment that I'm really, really excited for him to get.
Okay. Well, speaking of another big moment, the next match we've got is the women's WWE Championship match. And this one, by the sheer process of elimination on what we predicted with the women's world title, I think we know what this is going to be. And I think, frankly, this is thematically the most pleasing possibility as well. And that is Io Sky versus her damage control stablemate, Bailey.
Well, she teased it on Raw when she was very aggressively confronted by Nia Jax. She's like, yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm gonna make my decision on SmackDown. So that was very heelish. And as soon as she said that, the camera went on Io Sky, who made that face of uncertainty. So that was really good camera work, like really good coordination from everybody on that one, right? It's like we were told in drama when we used to do drama, right? You never stop reacting. You always react to something. So good on EO for having done that. I think I would have liked a little bit more build for this one instead of having it been announced for this immediate SmackDown. Because I think on the other side, Roman and Cody just seems like such a foregone conclusion. And I know I'm spoiling it, but we'll get there. But I would have liked it a little bit more of a stretch here. Um, Nevertheless, Bailey versus Io Sky is is the prediction I think we're going to go with.
Well, we've already spoiled it, but I mean, like, we knew what was happening after we predicted the World Heavyweight Championship match. So for the WWE Universal Championship, I think it is going to be Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. I think that just is, again, like with the Women's WWE Championship, it's thematically the most pleasing outcome. Those two going up, squaring up against each other again.
It is. It is. One thing that I was terrified of is when Seth started to tease this on Raw, that maybe Cody would change over. He would jump ship, take on his or take on for the new belt, the World Heavyweight Championship, leaving the door open for The Rock to go up against Roman at WrestleMania. I was terrified. And there's like this little voice in the back of my head saying it might happen, might happen, might happen. But with The Rock joining the board, I just don't think it makes sense for him to be in a wrestling capacity, at least anytime soon.
Those
So
two,
I'm
when they
gonna
do
agree.
wrestle, if they ever do wrestle, just have it be just for like bragging rights.
Oh,
Just have it
please.
have it be a dream match, like when
Yes,
Rock faced Hogan. Wasn't
that's
actually
right.
anything on the line, just a big match.
A passing of the torch moment is enough.
Okay, well those are the big titles, Thanasia. But I'm gonna leave the door open now for us to just spitball a couple feud matches. One that I think you've got and I've got is Jay Uso versus Jimmy Uso. I think that's just a really good bout that they should have. Another one I've got is, and you might not have this, but I've got Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill.
I don't have that one, but it's one that I was contemplating putting on my list. And frankly, I think we should put it on. I wasn't sure if they were going to have another women's singles match on the card, but if they're going to have one, this one will be freaking phenomenal, man. They might even save it for like a later pay-per-view potential, just having to give it like the spotlight that it deserves as like a marquee match.
Yeah.
But yeah, the symmetry here, great story.
Are there any other, before I get into my suggestions, are there any other matches that you've thought of as like those like feud matches?
Oh, I've got several.
Okay, go on.
So I've got Drew versus Sammy, as I've already mentioned earlier,
Okay.
which I thought that if these guys are not going to be in it, in the world title match, that they would have had a blow off. I thought that they would go head to head if CM Punk was still in the world title picture. Um, Another one that I've got here, and there were four guys that I was trying to allocate to singles matches, and that was Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, and Kevin Owens. The pairing that I've gone with is Randy Orton versus Shinsuke, because I think that one's a bit more fresh and one that we haven't seen before. Frankly, AJ has already wrestled all three of these guys already in prominent matches, but he's already wrestled Nakamura and I believe Randy Orton on WrestleMania stages. So that's why I put him with Kevin Owens instead. One of the things that I thought that I actually read was someone speculated that it would be a triple threat, AJ versus Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton for the number one contendership to Roman's world title. I don't see that happening, to be honest, because it's not really an established concept for WrestleMania to have number one contenders matches. So that's why I ended up going with these two singles bouts.
It's not, but I'll say it adds a lot more credence to the idea of backlash if they
Yes.
actually had something like that. And to be honest, just to put my cards on the table, I actually thought Randy would be a fantastic first contender for a newly crowned Cody Rhodes.
I 100% agree with you, Dimitri.
And I think that would actually be the makings of a legendary feud if they did it right as well.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you this. I had AJ Styles, Kevin Owens as well.
Oh, excellent.
And that was purely because I was like, these guys have to be on the card. And I just couldn't see anywhere else really to fit them in. And I thought, put them against each other for the same reason you had, which is because I had Randy against Shinsuke or Grayson Waller. It's just an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. For the same reason of just like these guys deserve a spot. Grayson Waller more of like maybe just throw him a bone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've got AJ Styles, Kevin Owens. I'm happy to go with Randy Shinsuke as well. I think those are two fine matches. Also to give some shout out to our Latino wrestlers. Some ideas I had was Rey Mysterio versus Santos Escobar. And another one I had was Dominic Mysterio versus Andrade.
I had the inverse. I
Ah,
actually had the inverse there. I just thought Dom versus Rey Mysterio, just as like a repeat of last year, as a rematch with Dom going over. But I like any of those combinations there. I think that would work very, very well. I also thought that for Santos versus Andrade, that it would be a way that Zelina Vega brings in Andrade to kind of, get some justice. She's like, I know a guy who's very, very good and could go head to head with him. But that was my thought on that. Do you want to elaborate a bit on your thoughts though?
My thoughts was this. Dominic and Andrade are both on Raw. Santos Escobar and Ray are both on SmackDown. Ray and Santos obviously have their beef going on right now. Dominic Mysterio and Andrade, I just thought they'd have a good match. I think give Andrade that spot, and that's why I'm putting them together. What I'm going to do on the graphic, though, is I'm going to take your advice, and that is I'm just going to put the 4 in there, and if there's any combination of these guys, we'll count that as a win on our
I
on our
like it.
part.
And of course, as well, for all our listeners, let us know in the comments which one you would like to see. The final one that I've got on my list is one that I envision as more of like a pre-show contest. It might not even happen, but I thought it's worth putting it there. And that's Bobby Lashley versus Karrion Kross.
Yeah,
I think that because they're building that up, maybe at Elimination Chamber we have like the 6-man contest, or potentially these guys go one-on-one at Elimination Chamber, and then the 6-man is at WrestleMania on like the pre-show or something. But yeah, I just think getting the Street Profits and Authors of Pain involved in this storyline somehow, it all kind of like wraps up quite neatly.
I like it. I had them on. I didn't have them down on like my official predictions of the matches, but they were in my list of like, can I fit them in somewhere? And I like
Mm.
the way you do. I think any combination of those two facing each other, or the 6-man, like it's faction warfare. I think that could actually be really exciting to break up the singles matches as well on the card.
Mm.
Just quickly, I'm just going to say very briefly, what are the matches that you think main event night 1 and night 2? Just to conclude this predictions of the card.
To be quite honest with you, I'm just going to go the way that I originally thought, and that would be that the two men's world titles are going to be in the main events.
Yeah, I had the same thought.
Yeah. If you have to make a call, Bailey versus Io to main event night 1 makes more sense than Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley because they're the Royal Rumble winners. And frankly, now with the injury of CM Punk, it could be a real cool way for them to actually do it that way.
It could, yeah.
Remember, like 2021, we had Bianca had won the Women's Royal Rumble, main evented.
Yeah.
Edge had won the Men's Royal Rumble, main evented. So they could do it this time as well. And I mean, Bailey's an awesome wrestler to have there, and she would complete the set of the 4 horsewomen of wrestling, having been in the main event of WrestleMania. So it's good stuff coming up.
Well, that's it. We've made our predictions now. Everyone in the comments, feel free to let us know what your thoughts are. If we think we stuffed it up amazingly, remarkably, or do you think if we somehow actually got a couple right? Let us know what you think.